take the base when the folks in South County vote for Karen, I told him you ran a very short meeting. And if he goes over, it's not. We can skip the minutes. That's
Counselor, how you doing?
I'm not running at the last minute, or after the last minute.
It's like, wow, she was like,
Unusual for you,
yeah,
right?
no, I don't know. Some told me it didn't help a little longer.
Brought me water and I brought my own. I'm good. Boss guy.
30 hours.
Started at 9 a.m. yesterday.
No, we're independent. I think so. I thought we were working, so I actually went through the approval minutes. Anything historic. Oh, yeah, they're right.
We can take seats. We're going to get started here. Let's begin. Hello.
You are not allowed to sit.
I'm not allowed to sit. Okay, I'll
Okay.
You're going to pick me up when I fall. Yeah.
It's so cold in here, I forget it's not.
Good afternoon. We're going to call the second and final public hearing on the fiscal 2018 millage rate and annual budget. Would everyone please rise to the pledge of allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I was just informed that we're live on YouTube, so please no scratching or anything that's inappropriate. Picking your nose. That's a good thing.
Didn't add that part.
This is a public hearing on the final hearing on our budget. Do we have any speakers that have signed up for that?
On the budget?
On the budget? We open up the public hearing. We have 3 minutes per speaker. Okay. I only have 2 names for the public hearing on the budget. Karen Michalski. Good afternoon.
Hi, Karen Mahalski. Do I need to say my address here? I know at the BOCC you don't have to.
That's right there. Ladies and gentlemen, the BOCC has decided not to have the public give their address because of the incident that happened. We're going through a process now of having a policy change, so I would like to ask if that's okay here, that we do not allow them to give their addresses. Fine, go ahead. No address.
Thank you for this opportunity. I would just like to request that as you go through the budget and as you decide on your routes, and the last time Commissioner White thought there was some money available, and I know Commissioner Merman is looking to increase the buses for the McDill, going Fishhawk to McDill and Apollo to McDill, that you put significant thought and request, or thought and review of the Temple Terrace area. We have lost the 51 and the 41. And yes, there is a link that you can be 3 miles and they'll come pick you up and they'll take you to a center. But the 51 can take you to Applebee's and back. Therefore, that is a great thing. You can stay in your community and you can go have drinks and you don't have to worry about getting a ticket. We can go to Skippers. We can go to USF. We can go to all these different places that allow for a social life, and they are completely gone. As well as it takes you to the net park, where you can then connect to go to Ybor locations. Both the 41 and the 51 are gone. Again, this is going to affect the Tampa Tech High School, and there is a recreation center there on Sly, as well as a community health or county health location. So I would request that you highly review and appropriate money so that not all the money is going to McDill, especially every 20 minutes. Both the 57 is once an hour, so it is a minimal schedule that is highly needed for people in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher Gleason.
How you doing? Christopher Gleason. I use the 57, or I will, up until it disappears, 4 or 5 times a week. It's the only bus in my area. I read on the Mission Max brochure that any route they're getting rid of, there's one 3/4 of a mile away. The closest one for me, which 57 goes right in front of my house, is 3 miles. I have to walk 3 miles. My other option is to go to Hillsborough on Harney. There is no safe way, unless you're in a vehicle, to get anywhere on Harney. So you're getting rid of a route for a bus. There's no other option outside of putting my life in danger walking on Harney. You take away a bus, you don't provide any way to walk on this road or bike. Not only does it service me personally, it serves a lot of people. I'm unreal when I looked of the routes that you're getting rid of. Of the 5, 2 are the closest routes to me, where I live. It seems that there's just a big notch out where I live in Temple Terrace where there's no buses going through. The 57 connected Net Park with USF. It was a very, very important route. I ride it all the time. It's quite a bit of riders for that area. I hope down the line you'll realize that it's an important route, not only for the students at Tampa Bay Tech, but for the Muslim Islamic Center that's right on Harney and Sly. If certain routes don't work out, where you can change the frequency and hopefully bring back the 57, maybe not the whole route, but bring some portion back, because it is very important to me personally. It's very important not only because of the convenience, because of safety. There's no safe way for me without a vehicle to get anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are the only 2 names I have for speaking on the public hearing for the budget. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on the budget proposal, our 2018 budget? Is there anyone else? There's no one else. I'm going to close the public hearing. What?
I think you need to read the script.
No, I got to close the public hearing first. Don't I? I have to close the public hearing. Am I right?
You have not convened the public hearing.
That was a public hearing.
There was a comment, and now you go into the script.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
That was a public hearing. It says close the public hearing. Okay. All right. Well, now I'm going to open the public hearing. Which I don't understand why we're doing that, because I thought that was a public hearing. People came up to speak. That was a public hearing.
That's the public comment portion of the public hearing.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
We're going to open it for public hearings. Is there anyone else wishing to address the board on the for public hearing on the budget? Did that backwards. Anyone else going once? Anyone else going twice? Okay.
You have the whole script to read.
I hereby open the public hearing this evening on the fiscal year 2018 millage rate and annual budget of Hillsborough County Transit Authority. Anyone who may wish to speak this evening will need to sign in and identify themselves.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. At a duly advertised public hearing held on September 18, 2017, the HART Board of Directors adopted the tentative fiscal year 2018 millage rate and the tentative fiscal year 2017 HART annual budget. Tonight, the HART Board of Directors approves the final millage and the budget for the fiscal year 2018. On the table at the back of the room, we have made available to you documents summarizing the fiscal year 2018 millage rate and budget, annual budget. These documents include the agenda for tonight's public hearing, which I will now outline. We will consider the adoption of the following resolutions. A resolution to adopt and levying of ad valorem taxes and the final fiscal year 2018 millage rate. A resolution adopting the final fiscal year 2018 annual budget. Each part of the hearing will be conducted as follows. HART Finance staff will read the title of the resolution on which specific action is needed. The board will then open the public hearing for citizen comments. In order to expedite hearing from everyone who wishes to speak, speaker comments are limited to 3 minutes. After citizen comments, the board would then take action to move for approval of any changes and then move for approval of the required resolution adopting the fiscal year 2018 millage rate and annual budget. Prior to our discussion on the resolution, we are required by state statute to discuss the final fiscal year 2018 millage rate and final year 2018 annual budget. Staff will now provide an overview.
This is the second and final required public hearing on the fiscal year 2018 millage rate and annual budget. The final fiscal year 2018 millage rate of 0.5 mils is the same as the adopted fiscal year 2017 millage rate of 0.5 mils. The final fiscal year 2018 millage rate is 6.43% more than the rollback rate of 0.4698 mils. The final fiscal year 2018 annual budget is $99,990,088, which represents a decrease of 2.2% from the amended fiscal year 2017 annual budget. The final fiscal year 2018 annual budget consists of the following components. Total tentative operating budget, $70,567,388. Total tentative capital budget, $29,422,700. Total tentative annual budget, $99,990,088.
Are there any questions before we proceed? If not, we will now take public comment again regarding the tentative fiscal year 2018 millage rate and annual budget. For those who wish to speak, I ask that you please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone else wishing to come forth to speak at this time? Okay. That will now have no one to come forward to speak. I'll close this portion of the public hearing and open the floor up for board discussion. Any board discussion?
Move approval.
Second.
Well, hold up. I got a script. I got to go through it. That's what they just told me. I got to stick to the script.
He's in charge.
We have some people go off the script and they get themselves in trouble. We will now take a vote on the final fiscal year 2018 millage rate and annual budget. Seeing as no public comment has been heard or no comments were made, the resolution will now be read. State statutes require that we approve the fiscal year 2018 millage rate before we approve the fiscal year 2018 annual budget. Accordingly, we will vote on the fiscal year 2018 millage rate resolution.
The resolution reads as follows. Resolution number R 2017-09-42. A resolution of the Hillsborough Transit Authority of Hillsborough County, Florida, adopting the levying of ad valorem taxes, adopting the fiscal year 2018 millage rate of 0.5, and providing for an effective date.
I have a motion to adopt the final fiscal year 2018 millage rate as presented in Resolution R 2017-09-42. That was a motion by Commissioner Merman, second by Reverend Wallace. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Motion is adopted.
The resolution reads as follows. Resolution R 2017-09-43. A resolution of the Hillsborough Transit Authority of Hillsborough County, Florida, adopting the fiscal year 2018 annual budget of $99,990,088 and providing for an effective date.
I have a motion to adopt the final fiscal year 2018 annual budget as presented in Resolution R 2017-09-43. Motion by Mr. Jacobs, second by who's that second? Director Roach. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Motion is adopted. In compliance with Florida statute, 2 public hearings have been held on September 18, 2017 and September 25, 2017 for the purpose of considering the ad valorem millage rate necessary to fund the HART fiscal year 2018 annual budget. This concludes the budget hearing for tonight. Thank you very much. We will now move into our regular meeting. I will approve of the minutes from August 7, 2017.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt the minutes from August 7, 2017 meeting. See them for discussion. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Motion is adopted. We now have public input on any agenda item. Do we have anyone signed up for any agenda items? No? Okay. We'll now move into a presentation of the proposed 2018-2027 Transit Development Plan. Joel Ray. A little confusing, but we'll get it right. Yes,
And by way of introduction, our standard process is to take the TDP to committee for discussion and approval. Given that we have done such a fundamental transformation of service with Mission Max, and we've been building this as a reboot from year zero, we felt it was important to make sure the entire board heard an overview of the outline of a 10-year plan. And our intent is for staff next year is to turn this into a 15-year plan so we can start carving out 3 to 5 year strategic increments, change how we're doing transportation planning here. So I know it does make a longer meeting, and this is on consent agenda, but we wanted to make sure you heard this. Thank you, Joel.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Joel Ray, Director of Transportation and Transit Solutions for Tyndall Oliver here in Tampa. I'm going to take you through a presentation that I previously gave to the Legislative and Strategic Planning Committee on August 14th. This is an abbreviated version for the sake of time. And what we'll do is we'll start out by showing you an opening slide that explains the two portions of this study that were completed. First, there was an operational assessment. The COA was completed. It's a snapshot in time look at the transit service to look at the potential efficiency improvements of that service. Thank you. And this resulted in the Mission Max change that's going to occur October 8th. You've already heard that part of the study, so today I'm going to be talking about the second half of the study, which is, well, where do we go from here? We have a 2018 network established. What should the vision plan look like for the next 10 years? And that's the purpose of the Transit Development Plan, is to set that vision. So that's what I will attempt to do tonight. Now, the study for the TDP started out with the COA where we looked at the service itself. But we just don't look at the service, we also look at the context of the operating environment in which HART operates. So we completed what's called a situation appraisal, and this is in the TDP rule per the Florida statutes. The situation appraisal looks at a lot of different contextual items throughout the area in terms of demographics, accessibility to transit, local and regional planning that's occurred, and also a review of peer systems both in Florida and outside the state. In addition to the situation appraisal, community engagement is very important. And you see here a lot of the events that were held. We also used a lot of the information that was available from the Go Hillsborough activities. We piggybacked on that with our own events. And you'll see here on this next slide the number of folks who were involved in the process throughout the project. Those events that are shown in the green boxes, those are events in which they're more traditional in nature, where it's a two-way discourse between us and the public that attended, where we were able to get input face-to-face from them, or on online or in-person surveying. You can see there was about 1,500 folks involved in that particular part of the process. The blue area of the table shows you those engagement activities that were conducted online. Through social media, through websites, email, and that sort of thing. This is more information dissemination, giving people information about the project and also letting them weigh in through social media. And you can see there we reached about 20,000, just over 20,000 folks as part of that. So we had over 22,000 folks involved in the TDP and the COA public outreach process. But I'd also like to add that HART completed their last major onboard survey in 2014. We used the results from that. Over 5,000 folks responded to that particular survey. And we also used a survey that was completed by Cutter at the University of South Florida. And they did a survey of grad and undergrad students and faculty and staff about their habits for getting to the campuses in terms of how they drive their cars, how they use HART and other modes to access their work, their jobs, and their classes. And there were over 3,300 folks involved in that. So really we had over 30,000 data points that we were able to use for the process. So this helped us set priorities. And if you recall when we talked about the comprehensive operational analysis, one of the things we posed to folks was, do you prefer frequency or do you prefer geographic coverage? And what we heard was frequency was important. In fact, we saw here in terms of this pie chart, 27% wanted higher frequency service in key areas and in that core. They also wanted faster connections between major hubs and points like the airport, USF, downtown, and so forth. Distant third was infrastructure improvements and also some regional connectivity. We also had a mind on the financial feasibility of service as well. We knew that there were some budget things we were trying to address, so that played a role in setting priorities as well. And so what we came up with, at least in the near term, was this 2018 network known as Mission Max. And you all are very familiar with that. Some of the highlights you see there, Route 1 and the revised Metro Rapid service running from 12 to 15-minute service, 20-minute frequency on 3 routes, the routes 6, 12, and 34, on 56, on 22nd, and on Hillsborough Avenue, shorter trip times on 13 other routes, as well as more direct service on 10 other routes. Basically, what we were trying to accomplish with the improvements was making better use of existing resources, trying to improve the route purpose and identity for the HART routes, as well as enhancing east-west travel on the grid. As you remember some of those heat maps, we were doing well in the north-south direction, but we wanted to enhance the east-west. So now how are we going to build on the 2018 network that's going to begin operating on October 8th? Well, the first thing we did was we threw cost out the window. Not practical, but it is purposeful for this particular process. We want to identify what are the true needs and how are we going to address those needs over this 10-year vision without a worry about the fiscal constraints. So this is the needs plan. Core network, higher frequency. Outside of the core, looking at alternatives to traditional bus, trying to lower those costs and do things that are more flexible, like the hyperlink, and also establishing relationships with other TNCs, the ride sourcing or ride hailing services. We wanted to make sure we were enhancing that connectivity between the key hubs and also look at the application of new modes like ferry service and also autonomous vehicle. And then, of course, we wanted to make sure that the grid was established with high frequency service in both directions and creating these connections that were quick for folks. So here's that plan. This is if we had all the money we needed, this is what the service would look like by 2027. And you see there the 15-minute routes in that core area shown by the red lines. The 20-minute service, peak hour express, limit express, shown by some of the yellow. The 30-minute is the blue routes. That's that secondary network that provides connectivity between the more frequent service connecting USF downtown and the airport directly. And then in the lower density areas, you see some of those 60-minute services. That would also be service that would connect regional areas such as Lakeland, both West and East Pasco, as well as both Clearwater and St. Pete. And then you see also the autonomous vehicle, the ferry, and some of those feeder services shown in that light pink color. There's a capital component. Obviously, you operate the service, but there's capital needs that support the service. In fact, to support the needs plan, over 200 new buses would need to be purchased. That is both to replace buses that are reaching their useful life, as well as increasing the fleet to accommodate some of those new services. There's also an additional satellite maintenance facility that would go into effect over the 10-year period, additional autonomous vehicle infrastructure to expand that program, complete the pilot, and keep it operating, as well as some bus stop infrastructure and ADA accessibility improvements throughout the service area, and then bus technology, looking at ITS improvements, as well as a replacement of the current CAD AVL system and mobile surveillance systems. So that wraps up the needs plan. All right. So again, needs plan, if we didn't worry about cost, not real world. So now let's look at, well, what are our revenue streams going to allow us to do? And this is what we've called the 2027 funded plan, and this is what it would look like. This is what we could actually accomplish with those revenues that we anticipate receiving over this next decade. There is still an intent to have the core be more frequent. There are a number of routes shown there in the core. In fact, there's 10 routes that would be improved to 15-minute or better service, including that Metro Rapid route. All routes would go to 7 days per week, including the Saturday and Sunday service. And then the Flex service would go away, and all of it would be replaced by Hyperlink. In fact, there'd be 14 total now Hyperlink areas. That would be the 4 existing plus the 10 new. So that is the funded plan. There are some new routes included, as shown here, including a new South County service operating on 301 to Brandon. And then the Route 31 that currently operates in South County on 41 would go to 30 minutes from its 60 minutes during that time period. So those are the improvements from an operating standpoint. Capital, very similar, but at a smaller scale, obviously. Only 112 new replacement vehicles. The Phase 2 satellite maintenance facility cost included here would just be that PD&E that would be done for the facility that was in the needs plan. So this would just be the planning and design for it, and not necessarily construction of the facility itself. That would require additional funding, and then bus stop infrastructure and ADA accessibility improvements. So let's take a look at the networks themselves and how they compare with some of the demographics that are inherent in what the service is covering. And this is important because one of the things that we're going to wrap up doing is a Title VI analysis of the service changes to make sure that we're okay from a federal perspective. So just to give you a flavor, we've looked at the 2018 network, the Mission Max network, that's going to start up here early October. We've looked at the funded plan, what that might cover, and as well as the needs plan. And what you can see here on the left of this particular graphic, this is the population within the service area that is within a quarter-mile walking of the network itself. And you can see that out of the current total population in the network is about 522,000 folks. You could see the coverage of folks that actually have quarter-mile or better access to the network. And it increases depending on which network you're looking at. So, for example, in the funded, you're about 474,000 of those folks have access to the network within a walk, quarter-mile walk. Same thing with the yellow bars to the right. You see there, that's the employment in the service area. And there's about 409,000, and this is the current network within a 3/4 mile buffer. There's 409,000 employees or jobs, in the area. And you can see that with the new network, we're even tapping more jobs than what's included in the current network. Looking at low income and minorities, this is more of the Title VI perspective. You can see here the bars in blue on the left. This is the total population compared to the minority population. You can see the increase in the coverage of areas with minority population as the plan increases from the 2018 Mission Max network to the funded to the needs. In fact, the current network covers about 36% of its coverage is minority within a short quarter-mile distance of the network. And what we're seeing here in either of these three options, we're seeing a coverage of 38 to 39%. So we're actually enhancing the coverage from a minority population perspective. The same thing occurs when you consider low income, the other component from a Title VI or an environmental justice perspective. We're covering about 34% with the current network, and we're jumping to about 36% in any of these three options. Right? Now, this is the same kind of analysis, but looking at walking distance to 15-minute service. And this I wanted to show you because we really were trying to enhance that core frequency, the productivity. And what you're seeing here is a significant increase when you go from the 2018 network to that funded network even, a big jump in the proportion of the population and the proportion of employment that is covered and within a quarter-mile walk distance, a 15-minute very frequent service. And this is what we were expecting to see. Same thing happens when you look at minority and low-income populations. Again, significant increase in their access to very frequent service. All right, let's talk about costs. Now, a caveat for this. In TDP parlance, we don't talk about budgets because it's really not a budget. The budget's established by this board and HART staff. This is a financial plan that's tied to an implementation plan. So basically, it's an estimate of costs over the next 10 years and potential revenues over the next 10 years and how those compare. So when you look at the needs plan, again, the big plan that included everything, you're talking about a 10-year total cost about $1.5 billion. On average, from an operating perspective, that's about $130 million a year. Again, just operating costs. That's roughly twice, just a little over twice, what your current budget is for this past fiscal year. So it gives you a sense of the scale in which the transit agency would grow. It'd be a doubling. Now we switch to the right side, the funded plan. That total 10-year cost is about $893 million. In terms of annual operating, that translates to about $82 million per year, which is about a 25% increase what your last fiscal year budget was from an operating standpoint. Okay, so that gives you kind of that, again, that scale. This is what the costs look like over the 10-year period, with the orange shading of the bars reflecting the operating cost, and then the smaller blue portions at the top representing the capital. You see there in 2021, 2022, the increases in capital is primarily, that's when we're turning over a lot of the vehicles for replacement purposes and also implementing some new services that require additional vehicles. So how do we fund it? Over the course of the 10-year period, this shows you the distribution of the revenue sources that could be applied to the costs, specifically in terms of operations. You see there about 23% is covered by federal operating and state operating grants. Another 25% is covered by the fare revenue. And then ad valorem is covering nearly half, about 46%, shown by that green segment of the pie. All right. Since I mentioned ad valorem, let's chat quickly about that, only to mention what our assumption was, because ad valorem can fluctuate quite a bit. Even the Department of Revenue's estimates can fluctuate from quarter to quarter. So what we did was, one of the premises of a TDP plan, given that you're doing a financial plan and not a budget, is DOT likes to see some conservative estimates and not expecting wild growth in your revenue sources. So what we did here in terms of ad valorem was we took what was the budget figure for fiscal year 2018, and then we inflated that just a simple 2% per year to kind of line up with CPI, which has been about 1.77 or give or take over the last few years on average. So we figured 2% was a conservative estimate. These numbers do not account for what happens with any changes in homestead exemption. It also doesn't account for continuing growth in property values. So obviously our estimates could be quite low. If they are low and you generate more revenue in out years, that's a benefit to HART. What you're able to do with those funds is either advance some of the later year projects or bring in some of the needs plan projects into your funded plan. So it's a win-win. But we did want to stay conservative, at least with our initial estimates, and that's why you see the numbers we reflect here. With that, what is next? And again, I apologize. I want to try and keep this short because I know I wanted to respect your time and get you out of here quick. On your consent agenda is the TDP for adoption. We have submitted, because September 1st was the deadline I had mentioned previously, we have submitted a draft final report to FDOT to begin reviewing. It is a large document. So this way they had access to it prior to this meeting. Once, assuming that you adopt it, we will send a revised final version with the adoption date and any changes recommended by this board or HART staff. And it will go through that process so that the block grants are not in jeopardy, and HART will receive those in time. After that adoption process, what's next? Catherine mentioned it, and that's the implementation of the TDP, looking at it on an annual basis, doing those progress reports that are due to FDOT, but also looking at how this planning process could be enhanced and continue to complete outreach, to talk to the public, talk to the riders and potential riders to see if these improvements over time are still what they would like to see and need. With that, I thank you for your attention. I'll open it up to questions.
Are there any questions? Dr. Shanahan, you recognize.
Thank you very much. I just would like to say I hope that we're not just looking at buses in 2027. I just have to make that comment. You have buses up there. It should say, mobility, whatever, vehicles. And also, what's been the average revenue growth the last 10 years? If you have 2% in there, what's been the average for the last 10 years?
I would have to defer to HART finance staff for that, but
Has it been greater than 2%?
yeah.
Average has been about 5.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have to state that, I don't like people
Sure.
to play games where they go in and lowball it, and it's been the last 10 years have been 5%, and
Sure. 2% is what we used. That was just for ad valorem.
understood. And that's why I asked the question, what's been the last 10 years on ad valorem?
Oh, I thought you had asked.
Yeah. Oh, okay, what's been the last 10 years on ad valorem?
It's about 5 as well.
My point's made.
Okay.
Any further questions?
Just make a comment along those lines. For instance, in your graph of the funded plan in 2018, you're estimating ad valorem is $35.5 million, and in our budget it's $40.2 million. So there's a $5 million differential. I think you're going to see that the Department of Revenue estimated we're going to see 6 to 7% growth in the next 5 to 6 years, but we can't count on it. So
correct.
I kind of like the more conservative approach and the fact that we're banking this into our reserves, because we do need to plan for that rainy day and another downturn in the economy, and and we don't want to have any cash flow issues. So I did question that earlier, but I had looked into it and I'm comfortable with it.
Okay, good. Thank you. And that's what we were trying to do, is be conservative from the standpoint that FDOT is okay with the estimates, and also that we're not over projecting and assuming that we can implement a lot more than what's actually able to be done.
Any further questions? Thank you, Mr. Ray.
Thank you very much.
We now move to the approval of the consent agenda. You have items 2A through 2F. Somebody press the hold. I think it's 2A. There's a motion by Commissioner Merman, second by Commissioner Kemp, to approve the consent agenda. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, likewise. Motion is adopted. Now moving to action items. 3A, Resolution R 217-0904. Kenyatta Lee. Good evening.
Hello, Kenyatta Lee, Chief Administrative Officer. Item 3A is for a resolution to authorize the CEO to award a contract for installing a security surveillance system to Presidio Networked Solutions. The total will not exceed $2,418,776.66. Basically, this is to replace our outdated software and hardware related to our facilities and our security surveillance system. So this project is grant funded, and we'll be doing it in a phased approach, and we'll also have the ability to increase our security surveillance around our facilities and ensure that we can protect our assets.
There's a motion by Director Shanahan, second by Commissioner Merman, to approve item 3A. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, likewise. Motion is adopted. Thank you, ma'am. Item 3B, Resolution R 2017-909-45. Mr. Seward.
Good evening, Jeff Seward, Chief Financial Officer for HART. Before you tonight is Resolution R 2017-09-45, authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to award the contract for Managed Business Operational Services and Solutions to ADP for a base term of 3 years, 3-year fixed price with 2-year, 1-year options in the amount of $252,500 for project implementation and operating costs of $1.820160 for 5 years for a total amount of $2,072,660. Now, this did go before the August committee. However, we neglected to put the entire operating expense of the contract within the resolution at that time. It was only the $252,500 implementation cost that was put in there that the committee approved. So we're bringing back the entire contract tonight for the amount of $2,072,660 with operating costs of $1.8 million. This is $364,032 a year for the next 5 years. We had a third-party consultant come in, give an entire top-to-bottom review of our payroll, our human resource processes, and came back with validated and verified by HART staff. ADP annual total hard cost savings is estimated at $513,000 per year, with $2.5 million of savings over the next 5 years. This also does not include risk and opportunity impacts of $2.2 million over the same 5-year period. as well as the elimination of a license, which is about to need to be approved, of $19,000 for our current performance evaluation system. So,
okay. A motion by Director Shanahan, second by Commissioner Merman and Reverend Bowers. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye. Aye. All those likewise, the motion is adopted. Resolution R 2017-09-46. Ms. Smith.
As this is seeking authorization for the CEO to award a contract for the third-party administration services for risk management, automobile, and general liability claims handling to John's Eastern Company, Inc., in the amount of not to exceed $940,955. Basically, we're taking an approach to have a third party actually do claims adjusting for us. We do have a staff of individuals that will complement this service, but we also need additional help because we are experiencing high claims and we want to change that trend. John's Eastern has been very successful in adjusting claims for other governmental agencies, and we're trying to get our portfolio down a lot because at this point we have several open claims as it relates to GL. We have about 200 claims that are open. We have about 60 litigated files, and we have about 300 that need to go for subrogation. So they will help us get this under control and also implement an action plan to ensure that we don't return to these numbers as it relates to our general liability.
Move approval.
Motion by Director Shin. Is there a second? Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Kemp. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye. Aye. Opposers likewise. Motion is adopted. Okay. Chairman's report. Let me make a comment concerning what HART did during the storm. I got really no complaints from anyone concerning what the changes we had to go through to get ourselves prepared to run emergency routes and getting people back and forth to the shelters in the storms. I want to commend you, Ms. Egan, and your staff for the fine work that you did during that storm. I saw you on TV quite a bit talking to your family while you were there. And that shelter, how long were you there?
2 days.
2 days.
Yes, sir.
But the fact of the matter is that there was some confusion of evacuations being called, and I don't think that I know the county hadn't opened up the shelters yet, and then you were thrust into having to start picking people up to try to find them shelters until those shelters actually opened up. I think there was a little confusion there, and hopefully we'll work those things out as to who can call for evacuations in emergencies like this. I think that I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to get into that. But the fact of the matter is that you and all of the staff at HART are to be commended for the fantastic job that you did during the storm. We were blessed and went a little bit to the northeast, and we didn't take the butt of that eye. But we still have about 4.5 more weeks of hurricane season out there. And these storms are getting stronger and stronger every time one comes off the coast of Africa or hits the Gulf. So I think that was a trial run for us to be prepared for if it happens again. I think we'll be ready. I know we were ready for this time. We had some hiccups, but we'll definitely be ready if we ever have to do this again. So I want to thank you and your staff for a job well done. Thank you very much.
Say that the CEO of Atlanta recently said the CEO gets all the credit when it goes well and all the blame when it doesn't. It was really easy to be on television because I knew that our team was making it happen. I knew they were working 19, 20 hours a day, and I could stand on TV and say we would get everyone to a shelter, and we would. We would plan to serve 4 and end up serving 42 shelters. We would get kicked out of one location and find another, and it was fantastic to see that. But I do have to say, Preston over at the county was absolutely a delight to work with. And I don't know if he ever gets agitated. It was so wonderful to work with somebody that we saw a Category 4 storm coming in, and he knew it was under control. It was really easy to do this work with our great team and such fantastic partners at the county. Thank you for including us.
You know, we talk about first responders putting their lives on the line during that time. I can imagine what it's like trying to drive a bus when the winds are at 75 to 80 miles an hour before the storm even gets here. That's got to be tough. It's got to be tough. So, again, to you and all the staff, everyone, thank you very much for the job that you did, and we appreciate it so very, very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Chief Executive report.
Thank you, sir. At your seat, you will find a couple of information sheets, one on autonomous technology, one on hyperlink, one on our proposal to replace our heavy maintenance facility, and one that's an overall fact sheet. In previous years, we have taken a list to Tallahassee and to Washington when we've spoken to them about legislative requests, and it's kept us from focusing on the project at hand. Based on conversations with the advocacy group, what's been much more successful for the port and the airport have been targeted position papers just to focus on one topic and focus on the ask at hand. So we bring these to you for your review consideration, and we can discuss these at the upcoming October committee meeting, which will be before my first trip to Tallahassee. So just some state legislative information. Also at the August 7th board meeting, my apologies, we'd received comments from several patrons about yellow cab transportation. We have done a bunch of research in our system. We are still hearing complaints from some patrons that don't necessarily match what we're documenting. So Greg Bracken's here to talk about our processes thus far. Before Greg speaks, I want to stress that when we see that our data isn't matching up with what our passengers are telling us, we are going to go ahead and try to overhaul our process and find another way for folks to speak to us. When there is enough anecdotal information that there is an issue just because we haven't tracked it, we want to go ahead in an abundance of caution and open additional ways for folks to be able to tell us about their experiences. And Greg, if you have information to add, that would be great.
Sure. I'm Greg Bracken, Director of Operations Support, ADA Officer. We did listen to our customers that came and spoke to us, and we did a very concerted effort to reach out to them and find their complaints. We were able to find those that were true and those that did not hold water, basically. But we did take it very seriously. So we did reach out to everyone that was mentioned and everyone that spoke at that outreach meeting and got their concerns. We did meet with Yellow Cab and with Mr. Minardi and his son and addressed all our concerns with them. There has not been any dogs that have been denied. We have verified that. There has been some miscommunications. One was, we'll put the dog in the trunk. It was a Ford Transit, which doesn't have a trunk. It has a back compartment. So that person has been recounseled on how to deal with our customers. We have provided ADA talks with their Yellow Cab employees on how to do, talking to our clients. So we're reaching out and making sure that we have the wherewithal to make sure that we're getting the job done for them. We also met with Mr. Wasdala and Miss Mary Schott, Miss Catherine Egan, and Ruthie Reyes and myself met on at their property and went over their concerns and come to consult. We come to an agreement that what we're going to do and try to get things fixed and ongoing. This bid is up for rebid. The end of the year, so we will be going back out and we'll see who bids on this service again. But lessons learned. It's our first time with this contract type of work, so we'll make sure that we make it right the next time. So, okay.
Yes, Dr. George, you recognize.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, how does the customer complaint process works? If they have a complaint, are they calling Yellow Cab? And if so, is there any way that HART gets alerted of that, or?
It's twofold ways. They can call directly to Yellow Cab, which they have done, and but there's also, we have a report in our monthly invoice that they are supposed to tell us all the complaints that they've gotten, and we also take complaints on our side of the house and forwarded them and ask for responses. So that is all tracked internally by us, and we do have that on file as well.
Because I remember when we first were starting with this program, that was one of my concerns, and I think at the time I was told that we would be doing some spot checks.
And we do.
Do we do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We do right now, because there are so many repeat customers. Originally, we had scope to do 10% quality assurance, but when we started looking at how many individual riders took a lot of trips, that 10% wasn't feasible to do, so we've knocked it down to 5%. So we do 5% of our quality assurance calls every single month, and those are on file for the record as well.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And then final comment, sir, you hit highlights for addressing Hurricane Irma. We were delighted last Thursday to host a representative from the U.S. Department of Transportation. It was very short notice, but he was here from Secretary Chow's office. So it was a good conversation that we had about future grant funding opportunities, grants that we have in now. And of notice was Mr. Plans told us that the Secretary had been very happy to see that we'd been able to share our diesel fuel with out-of-state ambulance companies during Hurricane Irma. So Jeff is not going to tease me about Twitter ever again, but it also shows that DC has seen that we were doing some good work and we've got a new relationship with the administration. And finally, 13 days to Mission Max. That's all I have, sir.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you.
Can I ask one thing? Like the two members of the public that came to testify about Route 657, who gets back to them? Like, I don't know if they're still here, but we should know what the answer is to their concern.
Marco will speak
and
to
how
us
it's
in the meetings. Yes.
Okay, but can you speak to us and let us know what the resolution is?
Come to here, Victor.
Good evening, Marco Sandusky, Director of Government and Community Relations. We receive ongoing comments from the public, and we try to get back to them. I'll speak with the two individuals from the public who spoke today, and am happy to help them with a resolution. Out in the Temple Terrace area, something that we're trying to make sure that people are more and more aware of are the improvements that we're making to Hyperlink. So there will be a new Hyperlink zone that's centered at Temple Terrace City Hall. It will also be more affordable to use because we'll be dropping the fare down to $1 instead of $3 a trip when you're connecting to a transit hub in the zone. So that's a very attractive service alternative for someone who maybe is using the Route 57 in that area now.
And it covers most of the area of Route 57, correct?
Right.
So what I'm seeing a hand from the audience, and I'm also seeing from Councilman
Yeah, I just think it's really important when people raise that, because I looked through the notes and I read the minutes before I came here on the last meeting, that Route 57 is a very big deal. And so not responding to them in real time when they make the effort to come to the meeting, or not letting us know what the response is, because I don't know if that's really satisfactory.
Well, let me.
That might be the only option, but.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, that's one of the things thank you for bringing that up. So there are two of us who weren't interested in 41, 51, and 57. I understood that there were going to be representatives riding the bus, and I have been trying to do that. So if that hasn't happened on this particular route, I want to make sure that, just let me know when that's going to happen so that I can ride along with you. But also, every time someone speaks, it means that they haven't gotten the message. So I know that I'm in favor of Mission Max. I understand what it needs to do, but it becomes personal, and I want to make sure that that personal, each of those people understands that we're listening. And so the fact that people continue to come and talk to us means that they haven't gotten the message yet. So whatever that needs to be, I know that I've been emailing people if I know who they are. The problem is I don't know who they all are. I know that sounds like a double negative, but that's my dilemma, is that I can't. So tonight is the perfect time. So if you don't, now that you've said what you've said, I think that's great, but I think one-on-one is what it's taking on those particular routes, because there are large groups of people on those routes that feel that they are being affected with no recourse. And they hear what you say, and it sounds great, but until you say, okay, this is what it means to you, and you live on the corner of this, and you're going to this. And once they get to the park and ride in Temple Terrace, what route, what is the next step? And I know that you've done all the work, and I know they have it in place. It's just a matter of getting it from us knowing it to them knowing it. So I know we have just at least one more week, and I'm happy to hop on the bus and chat, but I'm not the messenger because I don't want to be the one giving them the wrong information. So I want to make sure that if somebody from staff is doing that, and maybe you've already done it for those routes, you're nodding your head yes, which means you probably have tried, or maybe you have. If you have already done it, that's great, but you're still hearing comments. So I don't know. I'm more than happy to ride along, so just let me know.
Wonderful. And we certainly do have a very proactive approach to outreach, and it ramps up as we're getting closer and closer. In fact, we're at UATC all day tomorrow. We'll be at Marion Transit Center all day on Wednesday this week. All of this week, there are routes that our staff and street team are riding. We're targeting the routes that are most affected, routes that have the most significant routing changes, or where an alternative it needs to be identified for somebody who rides today. So we're out there proactively, and to some extent, I'm encouraged when we hear from people because it means that they're getting the message, that they're aware of the changes. But it's our responsibility too to help inform people of their options. So we're committed to do that.
Well, keep in mind that sometimes they're aware of the changes, but they're not aware of the alternatives, and that is really the message I want to make sure we get. So if you can tell me when we're going to be recognizing that the park and ride in Temple Terrace is not as much of a hub for the 57 as it is, so the 57, there is no hub. It's lots of bus stops. So we just have to figure out how to make that happen. And I have confidence that you can do that, and you already have a plan for that. I just would like to be able to have that said so that people watching and listening hear it, and that we have two advocates in the back of the room, and they are doing their best to make sure that people know how they can get around. And I really applaud both of them because I know they've been working to get the message out as best as they can. So I appreciate that. I do appreciate what staff has done.
Okay, ma'am, I'll get to you on the general concerns, the public comment on general concerns. I see your hand up. That'll be the next time you can come forth. I know you want to address this. Okay. Any other discussion on the executive director's comments? Okay. Mr. Counselor.
In light of the board's decision earlier tonight to unanimously suspend the identification requirements for speaker, and in light of the fact I'm not entirely sure whether we have a policy or simply a custom and practice in that regard, and finally, in light of the fact that any change to policy has to be initiated by this board, I'd request that this board make a motion for me to change any policy that is in conflict with the action previously taken today, and to come back with this board with any modifications to the policy.
So you're asking for a motion to
direct council to come back in modification of any policies in conflict with the current speaker identification requirements that you want changed.
Is there a motion? Motion by Commissioner Murray, second by Commissioner Kemp and Reverend Bowers. See no further discussion. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposers likewise. Motion is adopted.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Okay. You have HART Board committee reports in your packet. You have the reports from the HART Board representatives. You have the status reports in your packet. So now we're going to move into public input regarding general concerns. Ma'am.
Her name is Karen Mosky.
What's her name?
Ms. Mosky.
Ms. Mosky?
I hope we got her right.
So a couple of things. In regards to what the gentleman said about taking the link is going to take you to a transit center. But what happens if you're on the 57 and we could go to Applebee's, we could go to Skipper's. How are we now going to get to those places? We're not going to. So it's really truly walking. And how it works is it's going to be 3 miles from the Temple Terrace County Center. We're going to have to walk to that place. And if you walk on 78th, then it's not so bad. It's not really safe. There's not sidewalks the whole entire way. But if we had to ever go down to the Net Park, you have to go, like he said, on Harney, and there's no sidewalks. It's just not safe. I mean, and it's us, but what happens if there's other people who, might not be as nimble or might not be as aware, or they're just not going to have that option. But on the second part that I would like to make a comment is, I'm not sure if you guys are aware of grants or if we didn't make the criteria, but Gainesville, Tallahassee, Broward, Pinellas, and Jacksonville received grants for electric buses. And I was wondering if maybe you guys could evaluate why we weren't awarded that. Did we even put in for this grant? And it was by the federal. But that would be something that should be the top of getting money from the feds to have electric buses. Electric buses are so much better than the compressed natural gas. I know that is on one of the capital projects is to do the natural gas replacements, but if we can get money from the feds for electric, then that is so much better. Thank you.
Would you like to address that?
Yes, sir. And I see Commissioner Kemp is smiling because she thinks the same thing as you, Ms. Mosky. We did pursue the low-no vehicle grant program for our compressed natural gas buses, which are still about $480,000 today. They are $320,000 cheaper than the electric buses, all things being equal, and the electric buses over their lifetime do not save us the $300,000. So the CNG is still a cleaner option for us. When we've looked at the carbon impacts, the CNG has a lower carbon footprint because of how it is produced and what we're getting from the CNG. For the electric, we still have to factor in where the electric is coming from. And the grants were about $1 to $1.2 million each. So for most of those, they received a grant to get a bus and a little bit of infrastructure. Now, having said all that, we will keep our eye on it. And when we revise our heavy maintenance facility, which ideally will be in the next year that we start off, we are building it with an eye to be able to accommodate electric. And when we hit that tipping point, that the electric, we can guarantee here in Tampa, has a clean source, so it's got the carbon mitigation, and it's saving us money, or it's close enough in price that saving the planet has an impact we can put in there, we'll be integrating them in our fleet. So we're ditching the diesel, going for CNG, but we will be adding electric as it works out for us. But we did go after that federal program, and our friends who received that money did receive it. That got them about a bus each, or a bus and some charging infrastructure. And Marco and I together will talk to you after the meeting, because the nice part about Hyperlink being a pilot is we can be flexible. So let us see what we can do to keep you. I mean, I don't want to be flippant. These are very dangerous streets to walk on. I won't even crack a joke. My children live half a mile from their zoned elementary school, and I would drive them because they'd have to cross Dale Mabry. So we appreciate that having to decide if you're going to Applebee's or you're going to live is not a choice anyone should make. So let us meet with you after the meeting to see how much more creative we can get.
So as we all agree, as well as I spoke to him as well last time, that our streets are donut sidewalks, then I urge you to work with the county to request that new developments, that is a project for development, that impact fees do not cover this, and that it should start as a separate requirement of better streets, because he also mentioned it as well as, you know, it's sad that you can't even have a route or a walking option because there are no sidewalks. I mean, we should want to make Hillsborough County great and have people come here. But it's limited to, oh, I can't live here because there's no sidewalks for my children. Oh, I have to live over here. Well, if I live over here, now I'm going to be caught 30 miles just to get to 30 minutes to drive 10 miles or 5 miles. I mean, I urge that you, as an agency, work with the Board of Commissioners to voice your opinion in those areas that you can. Thank you. And unfortunately, I can't stay in chat because we have an FDOT meeting for transit.
Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
I just want to thank you very much for your comments on all counts. And I think the infrastructure is well taken as well. There are 4 county commissioners here, and so we're hearing it, but it's important for us to hear that. Also, on the electric buses, I just want to let you all know that last week a Proterra electric bus went 1,100 miles on one charge. The efficiency of these buses and the for us to be looking at them again and again, and I think it's no question that we need to have this building with solar panels and look at our new facility, but we really have to, I mean, that will be the, within a decade, we will be seeing everyone doing that. So I thank her for her comments.
Okay. Is there anyone else from the public wishing to address us under general comments? Seeing none. Okay. Is there any old business? Is there any new business? Any other board comments? Seeing none, we adjourn.
Is that what your agenda says?